Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. I'm Jess.
I'm Jeff, and we're Two Moose Design, and today we're gonna do something a little different. Our channel is relatively new, so I figured we'd kind of dive into the business realm. We get asked a ton of business questions on Instagram, just kind of relating to how to start and all that kind of stuff. So in this video, we're gonna hit on 5 topics that are either tips or mistakes or things you should avoid or do
When you're starting a business.
when you're starting a business. So the first tip or mistake that we made was don't bite off more than you can chew. And
learn to say no.
yeah, that is a huge, because right away you want to just take in all the jobs and business you can get because it's exciting, you want to learn and do all that. But it gets to a point to where you can take on too much and it's actually a detriment to the business. For instance, we made pet feeders. That was one of the hottest items we made when we started out, was making them pet feeding stations for dogs and sometimes cats. But it got to a point where we started selling more and more trays, and the trays were easier to make and easier to ship, and they had about the same they were at about the same price level. But we just kept dragging out the feeders because we didn't want to lose them sales and lose that business. But it ended up getting us so far behind that it took us like 6 months to dig out of that hole.
It was such a custom niche for us to be in and to try and get out of it. People were like, oh, I bought a dog bowl from you 6 months ago and I got a new dog, so I want another one. We're like, we're trying not to make those anymore. So it was learning to tell people, no, sorry, we can recommend this place or try this, but just telling them, nope, we're not doing it anymore. It's a hard lesson to learn.
And another example would be if you want to just make dining tables. Well then, if you're getting enough business in the dining tables, it might not make sense to take on other small goods or anything like that. I would just focus strictly on dining tables or whatever you want your niche to be.
Yeah, we try to implement some larger builds every once in a while, and although I'm sure you find it more enjoyable to do that, it kind of puts a kink in the system. It takes you away from doing the daily grind of trays and getting the process going.
100%. It's totally more enjoyable, but it definitely is a wrench in my operation because you're set up to make like essentially 3 items, and that is it. Yeah. Tip number 2, ask for help when you need it. You are not an expert in everything, and some things you should just hand off to somebody else.
And so for us, that was getting an accountant. Right away, I've done my own taxes, just being employed regularly, but as a business owner, it's completely different. So if you get an accountant, they know what they're doing, they specialize in this, and they'll make less mistakes. And
people go to school to be accountants and do all that. I'm a woodworker, I'm not an accountant, I don't really plan on doing all that, so it's just easier just to kind of pay someone else to be an expert in that field.
So the key here is that you don't know everything. So unless you were an accountant in your previous life or for your job, doing your own taxes can be stressful and just hard to navigate. There's so many deductions and just things that you will have no idea about unless you went to school for that. So for instance, we started in 2017, and for our first year, just to try to prepare ourselves for what we needed for taxes and just information, we went to H&R Block. And the experience was a rough one. We told them we were starting a business and we were just trying to learn what we needed to get together. And they just printed out a packet and sent us on our way. It was not helpful at all. It was confusing. I was like, I don't even know what half this means. So then we called up an actual accountant in a neighboring town, and we sat down and had like 2-hour-long conversations with him.
Yeah, I think we hung out with him or went to have a meeting like 3 times that first year.
Yeah, and he taught us so much just about keeping the books and what information to have on hand, what you need to keep around, what you need to keep track of, like miles and just things like that, so that you're making the most for your money at the end of the year from your business.
And he focused on small businesses. That was his niche as an accountant. And instead of just giving us a copy paste, here you go, this is how it works, he actually explained to us how it actually works, what they actually need and why we need these things, blah, blah, blah. And the last thing you really want is to have a really good year, and then at the end of the year you lose all your money in taxes because you have no idea what you were doing and didn't keep track of anything, and it's just a chaos. People lose their businesses over not keeping proper paperwork.
Yeah, it's just key to have one spot for everything and keep it organized. I give him the paperwork, I fill it out, and then he does it, we're good to go. It's never been an issue. All right, so tip number 3 is going to be work as long as possible. This is for your job, especially if you have insurance and a good job. Keep your side hustle as your side hustle for as long as you can, so you can do things like pay off most of your debt if possible. Finances are one of the things that is most overlooked when you're starting a business. You think, I have the tools, I have some wood, I'm going to start making stuff and see where it goes. But
one of the questions I get asked a lot, kind of wrapped into this whole thing, is like, when should you quit your job? And you will know when the right time to quit your job is. If you're asking some random guy on the internet when you should quit your job, that's just not a question I can answer, because everyone's circumstances are so vastly different. And it's just, I don't have kids, so I was able to quit my job early. If you got 5 kids, it might take you 5 years to get to that point.
Yeah, it's going to be completely different depending on your financial circumstances, your life situation. We only had dogs, and we already had our house. We had 2 vehicles that we worked on paying off, and so now we have low debt, and so we were able to both quit our jobs without running the risk of not being able to afford our bills.
So work as long as possible. I actually wanted to work my job longer, but they ended up putting us on mandatory overtime, and I was already working 40, 50 hours a week at home, and then 40, 50 hours a week at my job, and then with the mandatory overtime, it just was too much, and for me, that was the decision where I had to make a cut, and the business was my choice. So take your time, save your money, and prepare for the worst, and just keep working until you can. The most ideal situation would be is if you have a significant other that has benefits and all that and a good job, and you don't have to worry about the benefits, and you can just quit your job and work on your business. But most people probably don't have that opportunity. We did not, so.
Yeah, it worked out a little differently for us since we were both in trades. You luckily had a job with good benefits, but I was in food industry and I didn't have any benefits, so I actually quit first to try and keep up with the business, and I couldn't do it on my own. So it worked out that they tried to put you on mandatory overtime, and you're just like, nope, I'm gonna stay home now.
They kind of go hand in hand, but business is a marathon and not a sprint. It feels like a lot of the questions I get, everyone expects their business to take off and just be booming in 6 months. And I promise you right now, that is not the case. We've been doing this for 3 years, and we're just now kind of starting to get ahead, and it takes a long time to build up that income and build up the tools and acquire everything, and then we built a shop, and it's gonna take you way longer than you think.
It takes a while to get into the rhythm of just working for yourself and not having a clock to punch, so you have to get up on your own and go into the shop on your own.
That too, it's a big shock, I guess you could say, because we were both working over 100 hours a week at our like normal jobs and our jobs, or business and the job. And then once you quit and you have all that time to work on the business, there's definitely like
an adjustment period.
For sure. It's just,
you have the mindset that you're going to quit and get all this stuff done because you're home all the time now, but with being home all the time, that means you make more of a mess because you're there 24/7. You make more dishes, you eat more food,
Endless dishes.
But it's just getting into a rhythm and getting into a system that you're comfortable with and that works with your lifestyle and your home.
So just take your time. Everyone starts at a different point in the race, and everyone's circumstances are different. It may take you 5 years, but who cares? It's just keep working hard, and it will pay off eventually.
And the key, I think, now is that we can use the internet. So we have I would say a smaller income area around here, but we were able to sell online, so that opened us up broadly to all across America, that people would buy our stuff and we could ship it.
And that's a huge learning curve.
Remember when we used to ship those shoe racks?
Oh, it was horrible. Just like we were so excited. We got our first Etsy sale, shipped this thing out to Texas, which is across the entire country, and this thing shattered. Luckily, the lady was super cool and she fixed it, and we just gave her a discount and everything worked out. But that whole shipping, all that stuff just takes so much time to learn. And the more I go along in this, I realize that I don't know anything about anything. Don't go into it with the word you know it all. I don't care how good of a woodworker you are. If you can't run a business, you will fail.
Yeah, just go into it with an open mind, be willing to learn, because you're going to learn so much. There's so much to learn. Nobody knows how to ship, how to build, how to do all of it perfectly right away. So
Dealing
then,
with angry customers.
yeah, so if you ask like, oh, how'd your business take off? It didn't necessarily take off. It was a slow, maybe a faster build than normal, but it was a slow build, and we worked out the kinks. I had to learn how to talk to customers, especially if their order shatters and it's our first order and we want to make sure they have a good experience so we don't ruin the business right out the gate. So it's just processing the learning curve and making sure that you're willing to move with it and move with the company.
So take your time, things will fall in place. If it takes 4 or 5 years to get there, who gives a crap? Maybe it's your retirement plan, it doesn't really matter. Just take your time, work at your own pace. And I used to set all kinds of deadlines, but I would never meet them, and all it would do is just stress me out. So just do as much as you can each day, just keep chopping at that tree, and eventually stuff will line up and work out.
All right, and the last piece of advice that we're going to give you is to charge what you're worth, which is a whole lot harder than it seems just throwing it out there. Like, obviously you want to charge enough to pay for the material and your labor, but what is your labor worth? Where do you start?
Yeah, just thinking back on when we first started, even like the first 2 years of business, just how much money we left on the table. Like right away, sure, you can sell some tables for cheap just because you're learning and honing your skills. But once you actually have sales coming in and you feel you have a pretty good skill set, you have a majority of your tools, you need to be at least selling at what your competition and others in the area are selling at. Or for us, we kind of, for example, now when we sell a new listing or place a new listing on Etsy, we'll start it at the competition, like where everyone else is selling at, and then as we sell more and more of them items, we'll actually slowly raise that price and end up just a little bit above the competition.
Yeah, and if not just a little bit above, a lot higher above. It depends on what it is. If it's something that you only specially make and there's not a lot of comps to look at to compare it to, raise that price up. If you can't keep up, raise the price.
Another thing I struggled with pricing starting out is neither of us had a lot of money when we were growing up, so it's hard to price them items so expensive because like I would never pay that much for yada yada, or that is crazy that you sell that for that, but you are not your customer. Even with shipping, people ask us all the time, like, how do we deal with shipping? You
charge for it.
Charge for the shipping. We'll sell a $200 tray and ship that thing to Australia, and they'll pay $150 on top of the
$200 tray.
So if people want it, they will buy it. So just don't be afraid to charge more than what you think it's worth. You'd be surprised. There's so many different categories of people that have different budgets, and you may make $50,000 a year, but someone down the street's making $500. In a way, we are artists, so you need to charge an artist price. You shouldn't be selling stuff for the exact same price as they can get some hunk of plastic or some cheap thing from Wayfair or
Amazon,
anything like that.
We're handcrafting things, so they take time, so you need to be realistic about your time.
Get a stopwatch.
It's also valuable. Time is money, so make sure that you're charging adequately for your time so that you can keep the lights on in your shop and that you can have a little bit extra so you can buy new tools that will make your life easier once you start succeeding.
And one thing that helped me was getting that stopwatch, because you think, oh, it'll take 2 hours to sand that tabletop, it'll take an hour to glue it, and 3 hours to build the base. Well, that is not true at all. You can probably double all them times. So get an actual stopwatch, something. For me, on my phone, it didn't work that well. I bought physical stopwatches, and then I would just set them near where I was working and just make notes, and blah, blah, blah. I don't do much of it no more, just because I kind of got a good feel of how long things take, but you'd be drastically surprised in how long things actually take you.
Yeah, if you physically time it, you know how long it's taking you, so you can roughly estimate, like, okay, this clock takes me 6 hours to finish from start to end, so you charge accordingly. And depending on how detailed things are or how tedious it is, you need to also charge for that. Like an artist, it's something that can't just be made anywhere else. They can't just go on Amazon and get it. So if they want it from you, specifically your art piece, they're going to buy it. So you just need to make sure to charge what you're worth.
So yeah, charge what you're worth. We're not really going to go into like actual pricing, just because that's like, it could be a whole video in itself. But just make sure once you're kind of gaining some traction and getting that ball rolling, at least be at where the competition's at, because no one wants to do this for free. And if you add up all the materials and break everything down and you find out you made that table for $1 an hour,
Yeah,
it's still a hobby at that point. And like, yeah, like she said, is it worth it?
Yeah, and that I would say is the main difference is, do you want this to be a hobby or do you want this to be a business? Don't compare yourself to the hobby prices that are so low. You're like, how on earth are they selling it for that? You need to compare yourself to the prices that are higher, to the items that look more professional and look like they have a standard, because the hobbyists aren't in it to make money. They just enjoy doing it, and they're just going to essentially sell things for cost. And that's an unrealistic expectation to set for yourself. You want to be able to make a profit so you can continue doing this for an extended period of time.
And typically there's that customer to where like they see the $80 cutting board and then the $30 cutting board, and a lot of the people are going to gravitate towards that cheap cutting board. But what we've learned is that's not really the customer I want. I don't want the customers that are going to try to like barter me down and get a better deal. I want them to have faith in me and want that truly handcrafted piece so we can charge them higher rates.
Yeah, in the beginning, we surprisingly had so many messages of people bartering with our prices, and things were already way cheaper than they should have been. I can't believe now that with our prices being where they are, nobody questions it. Nobody tries to barter. We would get people saying, oh, if I order 3 of these shoe benches, can I get 20% off? Because otherwise I'll go to somebody else. Like, okay, then go to somebody else, because we're already so cheap that we're losing our butts on this.
And that's exactly what we mean by like, you just get into different price brackets and they just have different expectations. And people with money naturally want to spend more because they know they're going to get a higher quality product.
And people without just want to get a deal. And we're not in the business of giving deals. We're trying to make money and make quality pieces. You can't make a good piece of furniture cheap and easy and then sell it at an extra discount. Like, you're not going to make anything off of that.
No. Alright guys, so that is it. That is the end of the video. We hope you guys enjoyed this content. It's something a little different. I really need to focus on some build videos because I really want to get them rolling. Some good builds, some plans, all that. But we've been really strapped for time, so we figured we'd do this video because it's a little less time consuming and it's easier for me to edit and just get this out there. If you guys like this video, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, let us know what you thought. If you have any specific questions or video topics, please comment down below.
And if you'd like to see something like this again, let us know what other questions you want us to answer. If you have Etsy specific questions, we can do that.
That is all I got. Have a good day.
Have a great day.
We are plastic people. Plastic people. Alright, go.
Plastic.
The lips, the tips, the tongue, and the teeth.
Plastic.